presenting, and yes, we'll hopefully see you again, because if this was your first time, more information the better, is contrary to what some people may think. Okay, let's go to the next one. Is Ian McIntosh.
Needs to be following Clint, because I'm covering much the same ground. I'm going to talk about the case made in this document. First, I've got to thank whoever contacted the Audit Office for this opportunity to speak to the Council about this proposal to purchase additional environmental water. I do realise that this consultation is probably a complete waste of time for three reasons. Firstly, as Dr. Glenn Robertshaw has recently pointed out in Hawke's Bay today, in all recent cases where consultation has produced a majority vote against a council proposal, the council has carried out the proposed action anyway. 5 councillors have shown that they support the proposal in a vote held in a previous regional meeting. If history is any guide, it's unlikely that that 5 will change their minds. And lastly, I'm sorry Dr. Pearce didn't stay here. At the last regional council meeting, he mentioned that the council had already agreed to take water 3 times, he just said today, for environmental purposes a number of times in the past. He started with a concession deed. 2 of those decisions were in public excluded and secret session, so we didn't know about it. And I think he just added the flushing flows to add to the confusion. However, I am an optimist, and it is possible that common sense and reason will prevail round this table. In my previous life as a science teacher, if a student had presented the case for the proposal in this document for assessment, the resultant grade would have been not achieved, as it fails to reach the standard required on the grounds that there are important factual errors, contradictions, omissions, and a very poor argument presented. In my written submission, some of those matters were discussed, but I'd like to use this opportunity to highlight some key issues. The first one, in paragraph 1.4, where it says the revenue foregone by the RWLP to deliver flows to council for environmental benefits equates to approximately $7.6 million, which is a proxy value for the environmental benefits delivered. That is just plain misplaced sophistry. Surely the value for the benefits delivered should equate to the price paid for the water by the regional council, which is a total of $36.9 million. Otherwise, why would anyone be silly enough to pay $36.9 million for a benefit they valued at only $7.6 million, which is a quarter of that amount paid? In paragraph 3 in this document, it says the proposal ensures that environmental flows are available to the council at the foundation water price, 17.5 cents from 2019-20 to 2024-25, and 23 cents thereafter. It omits to mention that the water is in fact offered free until the year 2025-26. See paragraph 1.1. That error is then carried forward into the tables on pages 7 to 10 of this document, showing a financial liability for water purchase in the long-term plan from 2019-20 to 2020-24, 24-25, when no such liability exists under this proposal. And I consider that the council first needs to decide whether the water is at 0 cost, as in paragraph 1, or at the costs mentioned in paragraph 3 and the subsequent tables. Straighten it out. In part 2, reasons for this proposal, the first paragraph, which reads, Objective TT1A in Plan Change 6 requires council to maintain or enhance the habitat and health of ecosystems, macroinvertebrates, native fish and trout. the provision of additional water for environmental flows would be a significant step towards achieving this objective. And that's the point that Dr. Pearce is flogging. This initiative also has the potential, it says, to support objective TT1D by protecting the significant values of wetlands. That is nothing more than deliberate misrepresentation. It omits to mention that Plan Change 6, the resource consent conditions, the nutrient limits, the low flow limits, and the mitigation measures for the RWSS were specifically designed to do those things, and they are just not mentioned in this proposal. Other deliberate omissions include the existence and renegotiation of the concession deed, which we were told nothing about because it was all done in secret, and its draft provisions, which are still unavailable to the public, which gave the council considerably more freedom of choice in its use of the 4 million cubic metres of environmental water. You could choose to use it or not use it. In this contract, you use it whether you like it or not, and you pay for it. Noticeably absent is any mention of how the environmental water will be distributed, at what cost, and to which areas. There may be substantial expenses yet to be revealed if the planned farm distribution network is used. I gather that the Auditor's Office advice and the need to get the consultation process over by late June to meet HBRC's target has not given the council staff sufficient time to come up with a well thought out plan. The claim that HBRC believes that whatever amount of water is used, there will be equal environmental benefits is plain nonsense, as anyone with any experience in science will tell you. That is then followed by the statement, if the water is not required for environmental flows, then there would be a risk that a suitable buyer for the water may not be found. That statement strongly suggests that this proposal presents nothing more than a risk mitigation process for HBRC's cash flow. And you can see paragraph 6.2.3 on page 3 of this document, which has since been superseded by the obligation to pay a 6% return on the HBRC investment in the RWSS, although this proposal does claw some of that investment back, doesn't it? On that matter, I'd like you to look at the balanced benefit sheets, which I've put on the front of my notes, put out by HBRC, and the statement under financial returns, where it says the RWSS offers opportunity to use financial returns for other projects to benefit the Bay. And I stress the word other projects. A 6% dividend on $80 million is $4.8 million a year. That amount would meet the costs of an additional 25 to 30 staff members, hopefully with some degree of integrity. My written submission lists a number of other possibilities for the use of that income, including fixing the long-standing sewage problems in Central Hawke's Bay, which would do more for the health of the rivers than the occasional summer flushing flow. This project already has a well-documented record of overly optimistic predictions followed by subsequent failures to meet the forecasts. The price that is already being paid is damage to this organisation's reputation and the staff culture, in which reason, logic, service to the public and ratepayers seems to play a progressively smaller part. I urge you to think carefully before you commit this council to throwing water around at ill-defined targets for the next 35 years and forsaking a substantial part of the benefit that should accrue to the wider community of Hawke's Bay as a result of investing in the RWSS. I have chosen to support option C, although I started off years ago supporting the concept of the dam, and no, I'm going to exercise the same privilege as HBRC. I'm not answering your questions.
Thank you. Order, please.
Mr. Chairman, In that case, I've got a question, and it's for the Chief Executive, and that is it not the case that after that meeting where a provisional decision was made on the issue of supplementary flows, that you immediately contacted the Audit Office?
Yes, it was myself who contacted the Auditor General.
And if I can follow up with that, was it not Councillor Dick's suggestion in the first instance, which was confirmed during my debate?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm sure the email who was sent, so the request was to...
Okay, last one for this session is Mr. Paul Bailey. Welcome. Ross McLean is unavailable. No, because it's only just scribbled just then, or not long before. Pardon me? No, and much appreciated. Okay, Mr. Bailey, welcome. Submission number 15.
Thank you.
And 10 minutes is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I must say, I wonder what Mr. Deckard had for lunch, because I wouldn't mind some of it. Anyway, the thing that strikes me about the environmental flows proposal is that there is no need to rush to make this decision. The consultation document states that the public will be asked to make a commitment before the precise projects are fully identified and prioritised. What's the rush? If, as HBRC claims, there has been sufficient water sold to make the RWSS cash flow positive, then clearly you've already missed out on being a foundation water user, and therefore there is no need to hurry. Alternatively, if HBRC has given you some exemption on this timing, then the result is the same. There is no need to hurry. Therefore, you have an opportunity to properly consult with the ratepayers on this issue. There is no need to rush. As a ratepayer, I would like some answers before you make any decisions. For example, where is the science which proves the need for additional flushing flows of 4 million cubes? A statement from the head of resource consenting that any additional water would be good for the river is, I believe, insufficient evidence for the expenditure of $36.9 million. Environment Canterbury's report, Waimakere Riverbed Sediment Movement for Ecological Resetting, which is about flushing flows, states, however, the nature of braided rivers is such that even during large floods, there are numerous and widespread areas where the bed is not disturbed that act as refuges for benefic invertebrates and as sources of invertebrate drift and periothite and propagannules that allow rapid colonisation of parts of the river following freshers and floods. I apologise for my pronunciation of those Latin terms. So what's the point of flushing flows? Even if they could be considered substantial floods, they're only a very temporary fix. To say that this issue was canvassed at the Board of Inquiry is a cop-out. Submitters had received expert advice that flushing flows are ineffective but not detrimental to braided river systems. So why would they put resources into arguing against something that is not going to cost anything? However, this proposal is different. It is not a free lunch and needs to be closely scrutinised. I think we need independent scientific evidence that flushing flows are going to be of any benefit to the Tukituki River system before any decision is made. Also, what alternative uses for these funds have been considered? What about Lake Tutera? What about the Upper Mohaka? Councillor Dick made the very valid point that approval of this funding will set a dangerous precedent for future councils. Is this a legacy councillors really want to leave? Have our two treaty partners been fully consulted on this proposal? There is no indication that there has been. Have the hapu of the lower reaches of the Tuki catchment been asked if they want to be the recipients of all the detritus that has been flushed down the river? Who knows? What this proposal looks like to me is it is fulfilling a desire of an outside investor in the RWSS to have more certainty of income streams. Like 57% of Hawke's Bay Today readers, maybe they didn't think signing up about 40 million cubes was enough. Why else has the outside investor yet to come forward? To my mind, they are waiting this decision before proceeding. As a council, you were caught out making an initial decision to invest without consultation, and I was pleased that you were. You look foolish in the eyes of ratepayers. For a councillor to say 2 weeks after making an initial decision that public consultation is a no-brainer is treating the ratepayers with contempt. But as L.V. Martin used to say, it's the putting right that counts. So I support option C, even though it's not perfect. It's the Clayton's option, the option you make when you don't have any alternative. Like most ratepayers, I want to stop dogs dying in the Tukituki River. I'm just not convinced that spending $36.9 million of ratepayers' money is the best solution. It is money that could well be spent elsewhere so we get a bigger environmental bang for our buck. It is time HBRC consulted properly and put all the options before us to consider, not just that proposed by HBRC. Now that would be putting it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. I had a question there. The conversation there, it sounded like you were supporting option B, do the research and then come back to it as
Not
C.
at all.
So that, okay, so just so as long as I clear that up,
Yep.
that's fair. The Green Party have just come out with swimmability in the Tukituki as a desirable outcome. Without the flushing flows, how do you propose we get there?
It's a very good question, Fenton, and I'm pleased that you mentioned the fact without the flushing flows, because I think when you've asked previous submitters, you've basically posed the question that if you support swimming in rivers, then clearly you must support flushing flows. That's not necessarily, that's what it sounded like to me. I know you haven't, but that's what it sounded like to me. The important thing to me is you stop the nitrogen getting in the river in the first place. Flushing flows are not the solution to having swimmable rivers. Getting the nitrogen down is, because that's what will stop the periphyton.
But this is not about flushing flows. This is about very little water in the river in the middle of summer when everyone wants to swim.
Yep.
How do we deal with that with no environmental flows?
Again, that was something that was really well canvassed at the Board of Inquiry, as you're very fond of saying, or the Council is very fond of saying. There are minimum flows allowed already under the resource consents. There's already some water that's allowed for under the resource consents at no cost to the ratepayers. What needs to happen to make the river swimmable is that Plan Change 6 needs to be properly enforced. And you guys are going through that process now, which is all well and good, and I hope to see in future how that's all going to happen, but that's fine. But to me, that's where we sit with it. We've got those conditions in place already. Let's make use of them.
But with all due respect, some years nature says there's not enough water in the river. No matter what the minimum flow is, as we've seen in recent years, the rivers almost dry up. What we're saying is with environmental flows, you could still have swimmability in the heat of summer. Can you please answer the question? No, order. He's answering the question.
Sorry, can you repeat the question, Fenton?
Sometimes nature turns the tap off, regardless of what the plan change says. How can we maintain swimmability, which is a Green Party outcome, when nature says there's no water in the river? Forget about nitrogen.
Sorry, do you realise what you just said, Fenton? You just admitted that some years there won't be enough water to fill the dam. That's
not what I said at all.
Yeah, because if you're suggesting that there's insufficient water in the dam
naturally,
to maintain...
naturally in the river is what I mean.
If you're suggesting that there won't be sufficient water in the dam to maintain the minimum levels required under Plan Change 6, then you're admitting that there isn't enough water yeah, that's what I believe.
Councillor Scott.
I'd just like to pick up on your opening comments, because I'm a little bit confused, Mr. Bailey, that you don't support B, it's definitely C, but you said, what's the rush? There is no hurry. Go out with a proper proposal and consult on that. I think you probably were around when Mr. Chain said the water's not going to fall out of nowhere. So where, if not from the stored water, where would you get the water from?
Water for what?
Well, you said no hurry, go out with some proper proposals and consult on those.
Yeah, absolutely, but that, you haven't done that.
Well,
there's no scientific...
If these require water, where would you get the water from?
Councillor Scott, with all due respect, you've asked me why I said why is there no rush? Simply, you haven't done any scientific. There's no scientific evidence to prove that the flushing flows will be of any benefit to the river.
That's only one suggestion. I'm sorry, I'm asking about.
Point of order. Point of order. I want to hear what Mr. Bailey has to say instead of being hectored by Councillor Scott.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, there's actually not a point of order, it's an objection. And it's fine. May I ask the question? Clearly ask the question. There are other proposals such as improving Lake Whātuma, and I would like to know where, if not accessing that water, where would you think more water would come from?
What, to fix Lake Whātuma?
Yeah.
As the Forest, Central Hawke's Bay Forest and Bird suggested, there are other methods of doing that. And that doesn't include spending $36.9 million on water through the dam.
Councillor Bevan.
Thank you. Thank you for your submission, Paul. I want to move to firmer ground. Your submission also deals with climate change.
Yep.
Are you aware that there's a website being created which is called hbcoasts.co.nz, which actually updates you on the progress that we're making for collecting data on erosion and inundation and tsunami and so forth. So that information is actually available.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Councillor Bevan, I wasn't aware of that, but it's really cool that that's actually happening, because I'm serious about, that I think the citizens will take it over. We'll start running the message about it rather than you guys controlling the message, which is where it should come from. But you need to look the whole of the Central Hawke's Bay, whole of the Hawke's Bay. It's not just the coastlines.
Well, no, you're actually quite right. We're actually, this initial study is from basically Cape Kidnappers to Tongoia.
Yep.
But we'll go further later.
Yep.
Thank you. We're out of time. Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
No worries. Thank you, councillors.
Afternoon tea is available.
With chocolate biscuits?
Chocolate biscuit, all the same price, and we'll start again at 3:50. Oh, can someone resolve that we go beyond 6 hours? You happy to move? I'm happy to second that. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Thank you. Technicalities finished.